For this video, we're going to look at distance word problems. And here's our little chart that we'll use each time. And then here's some situations about distance. And a couple of things I want to make you aware of just on this chart. First of all, to find distance, we're going to multiply the rate and the time. And that'll fill in the distance column. The second thing is distance problems usually fall into one of these three categories. Either you add the two distances together to get some total distance. The distances are equal, like if you go and come back, or one distance is some amount more than the other one, like when is this train going to be so many miles ahead of this train? So we're going to start with looking at a problem to fill in our chart. All right, so here's a problem that we're going to start with. A passenger train left Bangalore at 1 hour before a freight train. The trains traveled in opposite direction. The freight train traveled at 30 kilometers per hour for 7 hours. After this time, the trains were 450 kilometers apart. What was the passenger train speed? So what we want to do is to draw a little picture that sort of represents what's happening here. We have a station and one train leaves and goes this way. One train leaves and goes this way. We have a freight train and a passenger train. And we're told in the problem that the freight train traveled at 30 kilometers per hour for 7 hours. And so under my freight train, I know that his time was 7 hours and his rate was 30 kilometers per hour. Under the passenger train, if we look back at the problem, it tells me that the passenger train left 1 hour before the freight train. So he travels an hour longer. So if the freight train is traveling for 7 hours, then the passenger train's time has to be 8 hours. And his rate is what we don't know. That's our unknown. So looking at the little chart that I have on this paper, for the time for the freight train, I'm going to put 7 hours, and for the rate, I'm going to put 30 for 30 kilometers per hour. For the passenger train, I'm going to put 8 hours, and I'm going to put my X here because that's the part that I don't know. To get the distance part, you always multiply straight across. So 7 times 30 and 8 times X. That part doesn't really come from the word problem. It comes from multiplying straight across every time. Now I want to think about which one of these three situations is represented by this problem. And in the word problem, it told me that after these 7 hours, after this time, the trains were 450 kilometers apart. So that tells me that the distance from here all the way to here was the 450. So his distance plus his distance equals the total distance of 450. Well, his distance from my chart was 8x. His distance from my chart was 7 times 30. And together, adding those together, I get the total distance of 450.